Hi guys, how are you? You've probably wondered where I've been. You might have noticed that I've been uploading a lot of flip-through videos rather than any other type of content, and that's because I've been super busy with college. Hopefully over the next few days I can make a color and chat to talk about that a little bit, but that's not what we're here for today. Today I am going to do a tutorial all about how to use Posca pens. Now, I'm no expert on these, and I'm certainly no professional artist, so everything I'm going to show you today is going to be kind of really easy beginner stuff because that's all I can do. And if I can do it, you can definitely do it. So first and foremost, what are these? These are produced by Uni, and they are a pen, but instead of being filled with traditional ink, they're filled with acrylic paint. And they can come in handy with your coloring to add accents. Now, some people out there are able to make entire paintings with just these Posca pens. I cannot do that. I am not that talented. So, let's start off with the basics. There are a lot of different colors, and I don't have them all. I just have a selection of colors here that I've bought. You can buy them on Amazon. My local art store sells them. And I believe you can buy them at Michael's, but I don't have a Michael's, so I can't confirm that. But if you have like a local craft store, you might check there. And Amazon, of course, always has them. And any websites that sell pens typically have them. I know there are some based in the UK that sell them. There are different sized nibs, and they go all the way up from the 0.7 millimeter, which is what I use, and what you should probably use if you're going to outline your photos. And they go all the way up to a huge chisel tip, and I'll give you some ideas for what you can use with these. Now, first and foremost, when you get these pens, you have to start them, basically. And I have an unstarted white one, and I'll show you how that works. So you're gonna take your pen, and the first thing you want to do is shake it up really good. And I'm gonna do this off camera so don't make you dizzy. Make sure that you put the cap on these when you shake them, because I shook this blue one time without the cap on it, and I got paint all over myself and the table and my picture. So you want to make sure that the cap is on there securely. Don't shake it without the cap on it like I did. Don't do that. It's not a good idea. So now that we've had this thoroughly shaken up, let me zoom in here. I know that I'm working on white, so let me just color in a square black real quick so this will be easier to see. Okay. There we go. And I will zoom in a little bit here too. Okay. So, now that we have our pen shaken up, I like to put the cap on the end. What we want to do is take this nib here and press it down on the paper. You can see I can do it with my finger. Well, I thought I could do it with my finger, but it has to be a little bit of a harder surface. Let me see if I can do it with the lid. I can do it with the lid. There we go. See, it presses down. So we're going to press this down on the paper. This is something that you do when you start the pen. You don't need to do this every time. Or if you feel like there's not enough paint in the base, then do this again. Don't do it every time. So the first time you start a pen, it's going to take a minute for the paint to flow out. You'll start to see the paint leak out the side whenever it's ready. And like I said, it can take some time. It doesn't mean your pen's broken. It just takes a minute to get all the way up there in the nib. There we go. You can see paint starting to come out now. And then you are ready to use your Posca pen. So, let me get out another one to show you. Let's do green. Like I said, you don't have to push it down every time. I would recommend shaking them every time to make sure the paint is mixed up, because there are some kind of thinners in here, and you want to make sure the paint's mixed with the thinner really well, otherwise the paint, the color's not going to be there. So, this is a green. Here we go. You can see that I'm not pressing down at all. I'm not putting down any pressure. I'm simply just writing with this the way I would write with any other type of pen. If you think that the color has faded a little bit, which it will over time, then you can take it and press it down a little bit on a scratch piece of paper so that you get the ink flowing back into the nib. I wouldn't do it on your coloring page. These are very simple to use, and I like these small nibs, like I said, because that's what I would mainly use. You can see here that the blue at the bottom there is a little bit faded, so what I'm going to do is press it down and then start again. And you can see that it's more solid now. Let me get this up into the camera a little better. Here we go. I see a lot of people say that, you know, it leaves puddles on their page. It leaves puddles on the page. It's doing that if you're pressing down any at all. You don't need to do that. You can just simply touch it to the paper, you know, make our scratches. That's all you have to do. I do have one here that is a larger size. This is the 0.9 mm, and you can see it's a lot bigger of a tip. I bought this on accident, and I haven't really used it very much because I don't have a use for it. I like these thinner ones. And now you're probably wondering what you can do. Obviously you can make little scratches on paper like this, but there's a lot more to Posca pens. I find them useful for accents, like I said. Let me get this out of the way. So let me pull up some stuff here. I've got some coloring books beside me that I know I've used my Posca pens in. So one of the most popular things that I see people do is make stars. And some people make really intricate stars, some people just do dots. I like to do the dots. You can see them here in the background of this picture, and I'll zoom in a little bit. There you go. You see the dots? Those are my stars. You can also see that I have outlined the water with white. This way it draws attention to the water. And I put some on the sword too as kind of a highlight. I'll zoom back out. I like using the Posca pens for highlights. I know some people use gel pens, and that's fine. You can use gel pens, but I just think that the Posca pens happen to turn out a lot better. Let me show you another example. I've got so many books here to flip through to find examples. Here we go. You can see I added just a little bit of white paint here, here, and here to make highlights. They make her lips look shinier. They make the paint look shinier. Just something really simple that you can do. Some people put them in the eyes to make their eyes look shinier. You know, if you're doing some kind of like kawaii type picture, then that does look good. And I think I've done that before in my chibi girls. Yeah. Okay. I've done this for the whites of her eyes too. I did the white line in them with Posca pens. And now you're thinking, well, that's not really that much. And it's not, no. I've done the lace with it too. I think that if you just trace over the black lines in lace with a white pen, that makes the lace look really nice. The biggest thing that I do with the Posca pens is trace over things entirely. And this example here is my ghost girl. I used the blue pen to do this. I traced over all of her skin with the blue pen, and it makes her look like she's glowing. It makes her look like a ghost. So, we can talk about how to do that here in just a second. I'm going to show you a tutorial on that. But some other things you can do with Posca pens, some people that like to do backgrounds in their images, now I'm not really one for backgrounds, but you know, if you have, like, take this book here for example, the background is just white. I'm okay with that. Some people aren't. You could do bigger dots with the larger size of Posca. Some people draw shapes like triangles and squares and shade them in. You know, you can make the triangle look like it's going around her. You could make her look like she's in a circle. Or you could get one of the big chisel tips and color this whole page black. Or if you had a page where you just liked the central image and you didn't like the background, that would be a good way to get rid of the background and just color it black. The chisel tip ones are really good for that. Those are just a few ideas for things you could do to create backgrounds. Some people like to use the Posca pens to make snow. I believe I've done ice before. I don't think I've done snow. Let me see here. I know I've done ice. I know it's in the Chibi Girls. There we go. Or, well, I guess you could call it snow. On the mountains back here, I just outlined those with white. And in fact, I didn't even color these. I left them the color that they came in the book, like this grayscale color, I left in that color. Some people would outline all of this ice to make it look, you know, a little bit more like ice. I did the water in blue, but I didn't feel like doing all of the ice, I just did the snow caps. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a tutorial on how I trace characters. So let me see. I've got out my Imagine Morphia book that I don't color in, and I use it to test materials because it's a good book to test materials in. Let's find a really nice character to trace. Okay. So, I'm going to zoom you guys in and we're going to trace this flower here. Alright. And we are going to trace it in red. So, I'm going to make sure my marker's shaken up really well. And I'm going to take my marker, and again, without pushing down on the marker at all, don't push down on the page, just simply put your hand down and you just follow the black lines. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you can go over it again. I just like to work slow. We're just following the black lines and tracing the flower petals. Now, this is going to dry a little bit transparent because these pens are not completely opaque. And once it's dry, I just go back over it with another layer of paint. And I have to do that with pretty much every image. I have to go over the image, usually 2 times. It usually doesn't take 3 times. I think on rare occasions the white might have taken 3 times if I was going over really, really solid black lines. And this dries fairly fast because it is a thin layer of paint. It takes no time at all for this to dry. But we're going to set it for a second and let it dry because I don't want to get it on my hands. I'm very bad about that. So, another thing I will say about the Posca pens is do this last. Do this when you're doing your glitter. Typically that would be, well, at least for me, that's the very final thing I do because otherwise I'm going to get it all over myself. You can't color over this with pencil, and it's very iffy with marker. I don't like how it feels. It feels scratchy when you color over this with marker. So that's not to say that you can't. You can, but because it feels scratchy, it may be hard on the marker. It may not be the best for the marker nib to color over this. You know, some people color over paint all the time, you know. I don't like it. It's just not my thing. And I don't know how good it is for your markers. It may be fine. It may kind of be a little rough on them. So I'm not going to promote it, but I'm not going to say don't try it. Does that make sense? I just don't know how good it is for wear and tear on cheaper markers. Some people take the white and they go over it with, you know, like a blue marker to make it blend in so they don't have to buy all the different colors of Posca pens. But I think that they're relatively cheap enough, and I'd really just save my markers, if that makes sense. These do have kind of a hard tip on them. You know, it's not a brush tip, so the paint really goes where you want it to, and that's it. Alright, so I'm just going to touch this and see if it's dry. Yeah, it's dry already. You can see that it's fairly solid. This one actually is more solid than it usually is. Let me see if I can even get this in the damn camera. There we go. Alright. You can see that this is fairly solid. The black lines aren't really showing through that much. So I'm going to do another flower with white to show you that you might have to go over it a couple times. Let's do like that flower right there. Okay, so when doing white, that's when I typically have to go over, because I just said it's not very transparent, and then it wants to prove me wrong. Okay, here we go. With the white, you can really see that the black is really shining through. And I'll show you how to kind of fix that. So again, I'm going to have to let that dry for a second, and I'm actually going to shake up this white pen a little bit. If you go back over it when it's wet, it's just kind of hard to go back over. It kind of feels really weird under the pen. It's not going to destroy the Posca pen or anything because they're meant to take up paint and put paint down. It just feels weird. It kind of makes it more stiff. It's a little bit awkward trying to draw back over it. So you can when it's wet. I just like to let things dry for a couple of minutes. Here, let's I'll color in a piece too, just to show you that you can color in stuff completely with these. You know, you just use it like you're using a marker. And so if you wanted to color in a background completely, it'd be really easy to do with one of the big chisel tip ones. I have seen them physically, like in person, in the store that I go to, and they are very big chisel tips. I think they're made, you know, for covering up the entire, like, blank space of a small canvas, you know, to kind of create a background. So if you're good enough with, what am I trying to say here? If you can draw a straight line really well, then I would recommend doing that to, like, black out an entire background. I can't draw straight enough, so I would certainly get paint all over, like, the main picture where I don't want paint to be. But if you had a steady enough hand, then you could definitely use these, you know, to color in an entire background. Just be careful. It makes me nervous trying to color in an entire background because my hands are so shaky and it's kind of out of my control if it goes like this. Alright, let me take a look at this paint here. Alright, and that's dry, so I'm actually going to take our scratch paper here and push down on it just a little bit to get some more white flowing in my marker. There we go. Alright, so now we just go back over this another time. There we go. And you can see the second time that we've gone back over it, it's more solid. This is just an example of sometimes the paint takes a couple of layers, and that's alright. You know, if we wanted to white out this whole flower, we could do that. So there's just a quick little tutorial about how to use Posca pens. Let me bring them back in frame and get this book out of the way. Also, a reminder, don't close the page of the book while the paint is still wet, because then it'll smudge all over the other page if it's a double-sided book. So you gotta be careful with that. I definitely recommend these to anyone looking to use them, or to add accents to your pictures, anything you want to spice up your images with. I think these are great for it. I think they're fairly cheap. I would recommend this 0.7 mm size, if it would focus on it. That's the size I use, you know, for outlining things in Jade's summer books. But if you are looking to fill in a whole background, or make large shapes in a background, you know, you can draw an entire background in if you're crafty enough. And then I would probably go for the chisel tips. But for what I do, I like the 0.7 mm size. And I hope this tutorial explained these well enough. I've never made a tutorial before, and I don't really know where to start, if that makes sense. I hope I started at a good place, and I hope I explained how to use these well enough so that anyone who wants to can try to use them. This is just like a beginner's tutorial again. I didn't do anything fancy. I can't do anything fancy. I kind of showed you the limit of my skills, but all of you guys are very creative, and I'm sure you can figure out other ways to use the Posca pens beyond what I do. Thank you for watching this tutorial, and hopefully I'll get to film a color in chat soon. Alright, thank you guys. Bye.